church. We moved from there down to 5th and State Street. And from 5th and State Street, we came up here. I didn't say we because I wasn't in the church then either. I didn't get involved really until after we get up here. But they were really scrapped down there on 5th and State Street. They didn't have much money. They'd take up a collection every week to buy coal to put in the furnace to keep the place warm on Sunday. Anyway, they figured out a way to borrow $10,000. And we bought this whole square block here for $10,000. We marked off what we needed for the church, subdivided the rest of it, and sold the rest of those lots to pay for the $10,000. So we got this piece of property for nothing. We donated 30 feet on the west side for chapel place to the city, so they could put chapel place in there. We had a whole wood building on the grounds, and for a couple of years we used that for Sunday school. Then we went out and got a barracks from Camp Ellis, Army barracks from Camp Ellis, and put it in front of the old building. And that was our sanctuary until we built the church. And we had quite an organization. We had workers. I mean, everybody was gung ho back in those days. It was fabulous way. We had it when we went to build the church. They put notes out. Families could loan the church money. Pastor Langholz was our pastor then, and he was a builder. If we wouldn't have had Pastor Langholz, we'd have been in real trouble because he was a builder and he knew how to do it. Anything was being done in the church, he was right there helping you. He had his overalls on. He painted the wall. He was painting the wall with you. He was just a great guy and a great minister. But anyway, when we got ready to build a church, they put notes out to different people. Anyway, the congregation wanted to loan us money. We borrowed money from one of the Lutheran Brotherhood or one of them. But to get the balance in order to build a church, people loaned us money. We give them a note for whatever they donated, $2,000. Or they didn't donate, they loaned it to us, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever they donate. And with interest, whatever we paid them off, we paid them off with interest. And we took about 10 years after we got going to pay those off. Every year, whatever we had left in the budget, we'd pull in 2 or 3 notes and pay them off. So over about 10 or 12 years, we got everybody paid off. We started the church with we made a deal with a contractor that the church could help at nights and weekends and do a lot of the work. Pat was our building chairman, and Pat would go down to meet with a contractor every day, and the contractor would tell him what we could do that night, what he needed done that night, and we had work party there to do it. And that was one of the big things. And in order to raise money for all this, we had a brotherhood who had maybe at least 2 suppers a year, about 2 suppers a year. So.
Yeah.
And they also cooked the Easter breakfast and all that kind of stuff. So our main club was a service club. It was made up of couples club. We met in a different house, somebody's different home, every month, once a month. And service club is what it was. I mean, we when they needed anything done, they came to the service club. We sold Christmas trees out here on the corner at Christmas. We made wreaths to hang on your door. We had a food booth down at we used to have a sports show down at the Armory on North Adams. And we had a food booth down there every year. Sold hot dogs and hamburgers. And out at the Heart of Illinois Fair, we had a food tent where we sold sandwiches, pie, anything along that line. And we made a lot of money doing that too. They got to the point where they were charging too much out there rent the ground and all, he didn't make that much, but the first 4 or 5 years that we did that, we made some good money on it. What else you guys got to do?
Okay. Well, I'll just maybe delve a little deeper in some of the things that he may have mentioned. And at that time, I was working second shift at Caterpillar, so that's why I was over here during the daytime. And Pastor Langholz and I did a lot of things. Like it was said about Pat, he would see that foreman on the job, and at night, and he'd say, well, we need to rack the scaffolding here, we need so many blocks, we need so many bricks. This church was built with one laborer, which you couldn't do today, because there was that participation that made it work. And so every Monday through Friday, they'd come over here. Other men of the congregation, when they got through with their work or supper, they'd come over and they'd help load up the scaffolding so that they had that. Now the contractor, Al Lang, had just got through finishing the church down at St. John's in Glassford. And if you ever get down that way sometime, that's the church he had. So then he came up here, and of course, the way things worked then, because you don't have you didn't have the expenses in that you have today. They worked on sort of like cost of 10%, which you can't do today because you got Social Security, you got insurance, you got so many things involved, which cost the contractor more money. But then after the bricks, all the bricks were up and that, we down there in the nave, I'll talk a little bit about that. Along each side of the nave, there's a tunnel like through there that's about 2 by 4 foot, and that's where all the heat comes up to heat that church. And when that was, after that was poured, we had to get down in there and take the lumber out, and we pushed it up through where the air duct comes up in them, and that again, like I say, all the members, just whoever could come over whenever they could, they came. Now more on the nave, I know about every inch of that. Yeah, down in the tunnels and all. And the day well, I'll go back to all that ceiling and woodwork that you see above, that was all stained down at McNamara Lumber Company, which was up there on North Adams, and I don't know just how much above Alexander Steakhouse it was. I don't remember that.
It was right in there.
Right in there. And they let us use the sheds where they stored the lumber to go in there and stain all that wood that's up there in the top.
We built that whole church, not this side of it, but the whole church itself for $275,000. You couldn't build a house on it for that today. I mean, it's
So then the day that all the nave furniture came in, of course, again, I was over here because I work second shift. I'd come over here to about 1 o'clock, something like that, and then I'd go home and have my lunch and head for work. But the day all the nave and furniture came in, meaning the pews, the altar, pulpit and everything, it was a nice cool day that day. The trailer came in from St. Louis and it was 90 degrees. And there was Pastor Langholz, I, and the truck driver. We unloaded all that out of that semi and stood up on the east side of the church there, and, that I remember. And, like Davis said, I help, on selling those trees during the daytime, because like I say, I was here, and, Pastor Langholz, he'd sell one, only had one branch on it.
We don't know what he got for it.
Yeah. But some of the trees that didn't sell, well, then we turn around and make wreaths out of them. And the wreaths were about this big, and they had the greens on them, they had cones on them. I can't remember if there was any berries on them or not anymore. And, but they were made, like I say, over there, part of them made it over there in the basement of the old parsonage.
Getting back to the service club, the service club had 1 or 2 chicken noodle suppers every year to make money. We'd have the service club get together on Sunday afternoon. We'd set the whole gymnasium up with the tables for the supper on Monday night. We'd make homemade noodles all Sunday afternoon and put paper on the tables and lay them out all over the gym. We'd have noodles all over the gym, drying out for the night. And next morning, Pat and I cook for supper.
See, before they made this back entrance, this all went all through, and that other part over there was a kitchen and a dining room up there, and that's where we had our meals, or bazaar.
Yeah, the big noodle suppers we had over in the gym though. After we got the gym done.
That was a lot of the wives of women were involved in that, and most of those, of course, when you think back I was thinking that up today. I was in '54. I was 32, and then you put 55 years on that brings it up. So 65 years ago, there aren't too many men left. There are a few more. We got some women yet that's up in their 90s, but it's just.
We had a real organized church then.
Yeah.
I mean, we had softball teams, dartball teams, basketball teams. The men of the church were in church leagues. We had the girls were in a volleyball league in the city. If we could get back to that, that's what we need you guys for. Check in on some of the softball teams and see if you can't get in the city league or something like that. To get the rest of it, get your buddies to come in and get here with you.
I think I said about enough, so you pick it up. Don't forget about the printing now.
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you, we had an organization here that we called the Service Club. And it was young people that was out of high school and young married couples. And we would meet over here once a month for a meeting, and then we would do service for the church and to raise money to help finance the building of the church and the building of this unit over here. And we sold Christmas trees, made wreaths, and anything that needed service, we did. And when we built this building here on a Thanksgiving, Pastor Langholz says, instead of everybody having a big meal on Thanksgiving, everybody comes over and volunteers after the church service on Thanksgiving, and we painted all the walls in this place. And then when about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we sent out and got hamburgers, and we would settle around and ate hamburgers, and then went back to work. But while we was eating hamburgers, Pastor Langholtz would open up his hamburger and say, "Boy, what a nice roast turkey this is." But we really had a lot of fun back in them days. And then, after we had built the church, we saw where there was a printing press that was advertised for sale. So I worked in the printing trade at that time, so Pastor Langholtz and I went out and looked at it, and it was a 10 by 15 Gordon press, and you set tight and locked it up in a chase that went on this press, and then you would feed one piece of paper at a time into it, and when it opened up, you'd reach in with your other hand and pull it out and put another sheet in, and I printed the bulletins for Sundays mornings on that press on a Friday, and then when we built this building, we moved the press from that church basement over into this basement, and then eventually computers come into existence, and so the typesetting went out the window, so we didn't do any more printing. They do it all on the computers now. So at that time, and then we sold this press. We paid $100 when we bought it, and we sold it for $250. And it's an antique deal. So the lady that bought it has it in her house over on just off of Main Street, and she's going to donate it when they get the museum built downtown. She's going to donate it to the museum. So it's quite it's going to have quite a bit of historical value to it. So anyway, we got this building all built. We put all the ceilings in with volunteer help, and we laid all the tile on the floor, and that was all volunteer help that did all that. And all these cupboards that was built in this room here was all volunteer help. So it turned out to be quite a project, but everybody had lots of fun doing it. That's it.
In our group also, we had electricians, plumbers. Larry Krieger took care of the furnace the whole time he was alive. He just died last year, and he took care of the furnace all the way. We had another thing I left off was the women's club. We had the women of the church, which was a great organization. They were divided up in circles, and each circle would have different projects each year, making blankets or making pottery or whatever. And they'd have a bazaar every Thanksgiving, or in November, just around Thanksgiving time, and have a big bazaar with a big turkey supper in the evening. And they worked all year on that, the women did. And they made a lot of money too.
And then part of that tile work that Pat was talking about, he laid all that basketball court out down there in the gym. And maybe, of course, it's a little bit off center now because they put the elevator in, but I don't think it'll ever be used for basketball anymore. Because national, I don't know, that's not the word. the club that did play basketball here.
Peoria youth basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for years, they played basketball in here all during the winter months. There's quite an elaborate scoreboard that was up there.
Yeah, the scoreboard was donated.
Back then, how many people do you think worshiped here on a Sunday? And did you have just one service? And then did you have Sunday school for adults as
No,
well?
I think we always had 2 services, didn't we?
Yeah, I think there was two.
And we used to have to set up chairs in the overflow to handle the crowd.
So how many do you think you'd have on a Sunday?
Oh, I think probably we had something like 1,300 members, and I think that counting the whole family. But I think we'd have 400.
I would think every Sunday we had over 300.
Figure 300 to 400, yeah.
Okay.
And then when the seasonal things came along, why then, that's when they had to put about 90 chairs up in that overflow room. There used to be a petition that had windows that went down and between, right there where you go into the nave. And I think the termites got that, so they finally,
Took the whole thing out.
so that's how come that was taken down.
Did someone from the congregation design this building, or did you pay to do that?
No, it was an architect that had that. I don't know, I can't remember who it was, but no, but Pastor Langholz was interested in something, a Gothic design, I know that, and that's how come we maybe got that.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
It looks pretty nice because we won, what did we win this year? The
Oh, beautification award.
beautification award, so it still looks pretty good.
Yep, it does. How many people would you normally have over here during the week working?
All different, anywhere from 10 to 20.
Yeah, at least that. And
What's that?
how many used to work each night?
Yeah, they wouldn't work every night.
15, 20,
You'd work so many nights a week
25?
or whatever, you could work, you know. You might have 10 here one night and 20 the next night, you never know.
Well, I was in charge of the chairman of the building committee on this unit over here on this side. And I had 4 people that I would call every evening at about 5 and tell them how many people I would need, and I need anywhere from 10 to 20 people to come over that night and do the amount of work that the foreman of the Val Lang's contractor would tell me how much he needed done that night. And I'd get 10 to 20 people over here, and we would do that work so that the labor wouldn't have to do it the next morning. So it worked out real good.
That's the reason we got by with one labor.
See, the one labor, about all he did during the day was mix mortar for bricks and blocks, because he didn't have any spare time with, I don't know how many bricklayers was on it, 3 or 4 bricklayers?
Huh?
3 or 4 bricklayers?
Oh, yeah, they had 4 bricklayers, and they laid the blocks and then the bricks on the walls as they went up on both buildings.
What did it cost you to build this portion of the building?
I don't remember on this one.
I
You know, figure
I
out
believe it was,
how much it cost, Pat, on this?
how much this building cost? Was it over 200,000?
The church, we borrowed $275,000 to build the church. And this unit, we built this unit for a little over $350,000. And today, they're spending that much on
On the basement?
remodeling.
Which probably means that we got $1 million
Oh, we got more than that.
or more. I would think they'd have to have that much insurance on it.
Oh, yeah.
We spent $275,000 on the church, and they spent $500,000 putting the organ in there.
Well, it cost more than that when you get done remodeling the building to put it in and everything.
But that's the difference between you being able to do that as laborers and then work now, like you said, you can't really
Well, yeah,
do
if,
some of that, I mean, you know.
if we had that same group now, we'd do that basement for
Yeah,
half that price probably, see?
yeah. But unfortunately, people are busy, and, well.
Everybody's busy, they,
And laws because of, yeah, labor.
See,
yeah,
years
the
ago,
unions and all, you got problems.
many years ago, it was the husband that worked. Then, as it got into the 50s and that, then people wanted a little more money, so, well, I guess there was jobs available, so women started going to work. And then, now, that's what you got, so you really don't have this surplus over here that,
When the sanctuary building was, built for $275,000, was that one of the more expensive, churches then at that time in Peoria area? Did people, you know,
They
like,
probably were all, well, we built it for 235,000 because we had a lot of help.
yeah, so it would've been more than that, yeah.
Maybe more than that.
see, it might cost us, say, over 400,000 if we'd had to hire all the labor.
See, and same way with the help in church, I think we had the minister and the secretary was about 3 girls that donated their time different days of the week. The organist, was all volunteer. The only money the organist got was if somebody got married or a funeral or something like that. The two janitors, they had a janitor for each building, were guys that worked at Caterpillar or places like that, and in their spare time, we paid them a little bit, but it wasn't very much, it was real minimum. So our payroll was about 5 or 6 people, is all it was. Well, I don't know what they got today, 15 or, of course, you got a bigger organization too.
And the original organist that also played down there on 5th Street, he came up here, Helen, she still comes to church yet. Sometimes she sits behind me. She,
Atherton, wasn't it?
Atherton, her last maiden name was Atherton, and he was our, what was he, treasurer or secretary?
Treasurer, I think, wasn't it?
Treasurer, he was treasurer, I think. And,
Joyce Goldhammer played for years for nothing.
Do you know what kind of a budget you had back that time?
I can't remember that.
if any of you, would like to read part of the history, if you can get a hold of a 1967 directory of the church, there's 4 pages in there that gives more or less what he said in the front of it.
Okay.
At one point, I thought I would go ask the office if they would print those 4 pages up, but I'm so busy doing nothing that I never got it done.
There should be a copy of it under somewhere in the files or something, I think.
Because, of course, I got a copy at home, but anybody
Copy it
would go have a 67 one.
Oh, right,
It's in
right
there.
What's
Run it up.
What's that?
Bring it over and run
What's
it
that?
up.
We'll ask Marilyn, see if she saves everything.
I'll have to pick from Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still, even though, like I said, I mentioned the word participation, and you don't have to do too much to help out, just some.
Bless you.
And,
How many nights a week do you think you spent over here other than building? How many, were you here a lot doing different activities?
Oh, yeah, sure. Something going on all the time usually.
Oh, you guys play dart ball?
We had 2 dartball teams. The men in church had a softball team, we had a basketball team in the church leagues. They had regular church leagues, and I think the park board still has church leagues, I don't know.
I don't,
But we had, Woodruff went to the state one year. They finished second or third in the state, and most of them came to church here, not most of them, a lot of them. And they were bragging all the time about basketball and how great the team was and all that. So the men of the church told them, bring them up, but play a little game here. So they brought them up, they were all cocky, and they brought a record player that played Sweet Georgia Brown while they were warming up and everything, and put a show on. And then we just
That'd be
proceeded,
the old-fashioned CD player.
we just proceeded to tromp them, you know. And what's your buddy's name that played center on your team? Pat? What's your buddy's name that played center on your team down Woodruff?
Huh?
What's your buddy's name that played center on that team down in Woodruff?
Played center down in Woodruff.
I never,
Friend.
Yeah, you know him. You camped with you, he went camping with you.
I can't remember.
Anyway, he was a good member of the church, and he was pretty cocky, we never let him forget that.
When I first started coming here about 20 years ago and started getting involved with the youth and with Jerry and everything, that's when I kind of started to do the Easter breakfasts. And I distinctly remember you two gentlemen, Pat, for the first few years kind of ran that kitchen for that breakfast. How many years before I came along did you guys do that Easter breakfast?
Probably 25.
25? So that's been something that's been traditional,
Yeah.
been
And
going
you
on a
do,
long time.
and you do a
Check
good
the
job.
cabinet up here.
I had good
have the
training.
kids right,
I don't know
and
about
I
that.
put them in the cabinet there. Well, you guys used to get here, what, 5 o'clock in the morning for me on Easter morning
Yeah, yeah.
to do the breakfast?
Yeah, but then we had it lined up by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everything was set, you know. I remember when Pastor Gall, when Pastor Gall first came here, he had just come into the church that day. And Pat and I were downstairs throwing darts. And he came down and he says, "Who's running this banquet?" I said, "We got it under control, don't worry about it, we're playing darts tonight."
Pastor Gall, he thought that the congregation should give and shouldn't have to have these affairs or that to raise money. He thought that it should be through giving, and so that's what cut out the bazaars and all that.
Didn't know that.
I used to give him a hard time. I had the service station then, and he traded with me at the service station, and of course, the women in the church met in the mornings, and they'd stop for gas on the way home. And they'd tell me all the problems they had, you know, they'd say, "All right, Daddy." He'd come in the afternoon about 2 o'clock, and I'd say, "Pastor, you got a problem, you know, you better take care of this stuff." "How you know all that?" Because I stay right on top of it.
But they have started having a few of those, because we had one for
The bazaars come back.
yeah, so
Yeah.
having a few things.
Yep, was there?
Last week, we had some of the kids that were here do some questions, so I'll just read some, and some of them, you know, I've already. One of them says, "What made you want to start the building? What kind of started us, I guess, coming here rather than State Street?"
Well, we had a chance to get this whole square block
Okay.
at a good price, that's the main
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
And
See,
Had you
at
grown
that
one
time,
down there, Dad?
Samaji was a member of the church. He had the first house on the other side of, or was that
I don't know.
Chuck Matlin
I
had
don't
it?
have one.
And then
Joyce has had one.
Then Joyce had the one up on the corner. Then Marilyn bought
Yeah,
this
and they
one over
bought it,
here.
somebody
and,
else from the church owned it before. My mom and
So
dad
there
bought it.
there was three or four that actually belonged to the church here. That had
Well,
houses.
when we sold those lots in the first place, we had it in the contract that they couldn't sell them unless the church okayed it. But that wouldn't hold up today, I don't think
No.
I don't think we ever did enforce that anywhere, but,
Yeah, for Marilyn's house, it still says that it has to be offered to the church first.
yeah.
That's, it comes up at equal
Yeah.
housing. You
Dad,
can't,
do you remember who lived in Rhonda's house, Kyle's house before them? She said somebody from the church lived there before.
I thought it
She
was
got any
contractor.
leases?
You know, Pat,
what was that?
who lived in
Kyle's house.
Kyle's house first?
She said they were from the
Kyle's house,
church.
who lived there first?
I'll
In,
definitely.
in Maryland?
Maryland's house, yeah.
I don't, well, wait a minute.
Was
Wait a
it
minute, wait a minute.
leases?
The second house was,
Go.
Gomes,
huh?
Gomes,
Gomes?
live next door to
Gomes,
Marilyn.
Yeah, Gomes, yeah.
Yeah.
They had the second house. I don't know who anymore. Probably knew one time, but too many years went by.
With this, when you built here, because, you know, this would have been also kind of far out at that time, right? I mean, there was not a lot of.
Oh, this
stuff,
was,
so you were this was the north end then, right?
see, part of this along here on Forest Hill was part was in the county
Okay,
or township, county, I think.
okay.
And part was in the city. You'd go down, we'll say maybe to New York, then go out New York in the city again, and go over maybe like California, back to California, and then it was broken up pretty well between county and city.
Because that's, I think sometimes, kids don't realize that, all this stuff, some of you live in areas that were not developed back then, like Dunlap, and that was all farm field, there were farm fields.
Even university,
But-
right
well, yeah,
there where
even-
Louds and McClure is,
Yeah.
all of that, but I have pictures of that when that was all.
Well, where Snooks is now, that was a
So
farm.
University
I can
on
remember
out
when
was
that was a
gravel,
farm
and
field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all cornfields and.
Yeah,
we bought a house, when we first got married off of Glen. Man, we thought that was way out.
Out-
And drive a long way to get to church, it's all the way down there.
Yeah.
So I think that's, some of them you've already answered when you come into work.
Did the women come over and feed you when you were working here?
Not too often.
No?
Maybe before they came.
We did, I shouldn't say this, but we did always have a six-pack in the
Oh,
refrigerator.
yeah.
Oh, you got thirsty.
I think one of you has told me before, there's beer bottles in these walls.
We get more guys here to work if we could
Well,
reinstitute.
I told the pastor years ago, if he let me sell beer, bring beer into the church, we could run bingo on Sunday afternoon and buy anything you wanted.
well, I
But it
tell
didn't
you
go over
what,
too good.
after they got through working at nighttime, they didn't thirst too much because there was no garage over there and that was something else where we made money. We used to collect newspapers, and we sold them to Settle the Case down there on North Adams.
We'd take it down to Harold Ward's garage and bundle them up down there. And we spent about half the
We
night
laid out
bottling them.
flat, and we made them, and rolled them up in rolls about so big, and they used it for packing down there at Settle the Case warehouse.
We used to,
So we recycled way before recycling was possible.
oh yeah. And it was quite a deal, bundling the papers up in magazines, because the guys would spend more time looking at pictures in the magazines than they were bundling up the paper.
He said they'd take him to Harold Ward's house. That's Shar Davis's dad.
That was in the south end, down on, what was that?
Yeah, down on Howard, wasn't it?
Howard or something.
I think it was Howard Street.
It was safe then down there, but
Yeah,
So,
that,
one of the questions was, how old were you when this was built? So I think you mentioned you were like in your 30s, right? When this was being built, so.
yeah, no, I wasn't even that old, I don't think. I was probably, I just got out of the service, so I was,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So-
See, most was, that's part of that service club, most of it got discharged around in 46 and 47. I got out in 46 after 38 months,
Okay.
and
yeah, I'd have been about 24, 25 probably.
of course, I always pick on Davis a little bit. I tell him that the Marines are a branch of the Navy, and but we've been buddies for many years.
Did you guys go to Applebee's?
Same with Pat, we've been buddies for years.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
you gotta keep Pat straight, he's a little mixed up on his sports and stuff. He's a Cincinnati fan in baseball, and he's an ISU fan in basketball. So living around the mountain most of the time.
Well, we appreciate you all showing up to listen to some of our gab, and if it give you a little information or insight, why, we appreciate it.
We have two questions to kind of put together. Did you have fun when you were building it, and what was your favorite part? Did you have fun, and what's your?
The worst thing I ever did was putting tile up in an apartment building, an apartment over here.
Oh,
They
yeah.
used that foot square tile. I thought, oh man, that'll go fast, no problem. Well, that didn't work out. We learned a lesson there that,
Well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here, appreciate you being members of the congregation and building this for us. So we really like the building.
Well, you take pretty good care of it.
We're trying, got to.